All right,
Uh-oh.
we are going. Yep.
Hi.
Hi.
Welcome. Welcome to another Wednesday night.
Hope
I should have been
do.
I, I think I should have been a strip bar DJ. Or the guy that announces the dancers. Welcome to the main stage. It's
A, stri-
Candy.
a strip club MC.
Yes. I'm not sure what that 401k looks like, but regardless.
I found the ass end.
Exactly. Oh,
I peed in it.
Oh, that costs extra.
you found the ass in. I feed in it.
All right, so I'm Marshall. Guy above me is
Joseph.
Joseph.
Hi.
Uh, Today we're gonna do a short little blurb over the movie Lords of Chaos, but we're mainly
No,
gonna
we're
talk.
not.
We're gonna do. I'm gonna talk about it.
Oh. Only
And
because you watched more of it than I did.
yeah, and then we're gonna talk about. I think that's going to lead into a discussion of why we watch movies, what kinds of movies we like, why we like them, et cetera, et cetera. And then we're going to be upset that we can't talk about Americans getting launched into space. Oh, look, our friend is actually here.
What's up? Wait,
Mickelson triple six
was it 420 or 666?
666.
Yeah, I
Still
remember.
don't know how to get you to where you can see the chat.
It's
He
okay. It's just another distraction that I don't need. I find rabbit holes easy.
Right. So Mickelson triple six. I watched about an hour of it, and honestly, that's as far as I could take it. And so that's why I wanted to talk about with Joseph and with you, and
Hey yeah!
talk about movies in general and like why I watch movies.
Did you
Um,
say movies or boobies?
I mean, I watch both, but for different reasons.
I don't agree with that at all.
Okay.
I don't
That's
I mean I don't think they're different reasons,
There's
right?
different reasons that I watch them.
Nope.
I mean, unless it's a Fassbender
Both
movie.
for the exact same reason. They make me happy.
So I'm definitely gonna give Mickelson his due here with the movie. So I'm probably gonna be monologuing since Joseph didn't watch it because I told him I stopped watching it. Uh, so for me, you warned us about the suicide scene, which that was relatively brutal. And in general, I'm not a big gore person. Um, But I think what got me is about an hour in or halfway through the movie, there's also like a murder where a guy stabs another guy in a park. And it was pretty, I mean, I guess I've never witnessed someone actually stabbing someone else, but it was very realistic and quite horrifying. And that's when I was like, you know what? I think I've had about all I can take of this kind of gore. And then I went back and I read the synopsis of the movie afterwards, and it sounds like, some themes that they started on developing kind of continue through, but that there's still some more gore and violence at the end. And I imagine if it being like the first half of the movie is just something that wouldn't be pleasant for me to continue watching. So I have to say I'm glad I stopped watching it. Um, that being said, I think that, I mean, I've seen movies on that production level, I guess. It's no blockbuster in terms of cinematography or anything like that.
Was it any different than that Fossbender one that was based in the same area where they kind of did the oh heck he was like a cop. It's kind of like a burnout drunk cop, based out of Sweden, and it had kind of the same. To me, from what I saw in the previews and the few minutes I've spent on it, it seemed like it had kind of that same oh production level. Maybe it's just a European thing. I don't know.
Yeah, I haven't seen that movie, but I
What?
think what you're saying, it's kind of like
Hang on. Did you just say that there was a Michael Fassbender movie that you had not seen?
I bet there's a lot of Fassbender movies I haven't seen.
Only like private movies by Michael Fassbender would I expect you not to have watched.
Well, I have not gone on a Fassbender binge. Maybe I should.
I'm disappointed.
Well, I'm not a professional.
Neither am I.
um, so I think the premise is interesting. It's kind of it felt like a let's see, based on a yeah, Mickelson said that it was based on a real story, and that's why it's
Mhm.
messed up. And I did read that, and I get that. Um, I definitely
Can I interject?
yeah.
I would like to propose that due to the holiday, I would like to take another chance at watching that, even if it's not a full feature. We spend 2 hours talking about it next week, but even if it's just 10 minutes, just kind of get through. I mean, listen, we don't have very many fan requests, so it's the least I can do is to spend a couple hours and plow through this thing. It looks interesting. I do like the kid that plays the main character. I think he's been really, really good in everything I've seen him in. Domestically, um, seems sharp. So I'm willing to give it a try, even if it's like I said, just a 10 minute at the beginning of the sequence next Wednesday blurb.
Right. And it's by no means like a bad movie or a poorly made movie. No, it's all right, Mickelson. He said we don't have to if we don't want to. I think Joe, I think this conversation I'm having with you right now is intriguing him to where he wants to just see what I'm talking about right now. uh, So I mean, I guess we can hold off on talking about it if you want, but the main character does good. I can talk about some of I guess the big elements of it that
No, you're not. It's not. Don't treat it like it's a spoiler. If
right.
if if you guys can engage and talk about it on any level, I'm more than happy to just sit back and enjoy. And I will take full advantage of interrupting you on multiple occasions with the soundboard.
That's fair. And one of the things I wanted to talk about, and I just want to let Mickelson know is it's what I struggled with. It's not my kind of movie. So I watch movies that are usually don't require me to think that hard. Um, I don't know why Joseph's getting me a confused look after I told him Tremors is in my top five.
Touche. My bad.
That in general entertain me. Uh, Usually just engage me on surface level, maybe just a little bit below. Every now and then I can get more into like a mind meld movie, but when it comes to kind of like dealing with real issues, like in this movie, there's a lot of depression, um, obviously suicide, murder. There's these kids who grow up in Norway, and the premise is they're like starting real black metal, like a darker version of metal music. And I meant to look this up before we talked today, but do it. I see you hovering over there.
You're not allowed. You're cheating.
Okay. um, so not that kind of metal. But I did mean to look this up. Okay, Mikkelsen says he's very into foreign films, and that's
Oh,
that's a genre I don't usually watch a lot of. So
so can I interject and say, listen, I think that Mickelson, I think that the movie that you interjected, although maybe not necessarily the taste that Marshall's looking for, and I'm really interested in kind of letting him kind of run with that idea of why we watch movies and why the hell we would do this in the first place. Um, but that is a genre that I would easily tell you that Marshall and I are weak on. Foreign films are not my bag. Not that I don't love them. Every time, like I said, the Fossbender one that I can't recall off the top of my head, that was I think it was based in Sweden, and he was a cop, and it was dark, and it was twisted. It was, oh man, it was always cold in the movie. Really fascinated me. I've always really enjoyed the trilogy that was the girl with the
The
dragon
Dragon
tattoo series. I think that, and those are all again based in Sweden. They were written by an author in Sweden who passed away, unfortunately, after he had only provided 3 of those stories. Um, so please continue to join us and continue to probe us and kind of and
challenge
lob,
our sensibilities here. This is
absolutely
definitely outside
challenge
of our
us,
normal.
lob those things up. They may not be softballs, but we'll take a swing. I mean, what the hell? What else have we got to do?
Yeah. Um,
Marshall, were you trying to show me your bookcase?
no, I was not. I
Because
was
I'm
just.
impressed.
Oh, you like it?
Yeah, it's not bad.
Check that out.
I like the negative space created by the verticals not continuing all the way through.
Yeah.
Was that a project in architecture school?
Yeah. They it's called my we went on Wayfair a couple months ago.
All right, touche.
um
By the way, this handsome devil that somehow always has, will presume that this gray polo is clean, but it's
it
always
is.
available on Wednesday afternoons for your viewing pleasure. This handsome devil is a certified licensed architect.
Believe it or not. So Mickelson said this is cool. So he said that the band is Mayhem, which I didn't know from watching the movie. That the movie's based on or kind of
Okay.
centers around. The band's called Mayhem, and he
Hmm.
said that he's seen them
Hey,
live.
yeah. Ha!
That he's seen them live and that they're amazing. And
Well, and again, I,
that's really cool. And I can see why
I,
you
I,
have a good connection to the movie after seeing.
yeah, I dawdled about watching the movie, and then again, Marshall kind of let me off the hook whenever he was like, "I've been in it for an hour, and I just don't know if I'm going to make it out." And I was like, "Cool, man. We'll talk about SpaceX, or uh, and then of course the best part that came out of that conversation was, you know, we do this for fun, so it's not like we're really forced into a corner to do anything. It's not like Paramount Pictures is paying us to review their most recent films. So
They might pay us
if
not
something
to.
just, if you get 30, 45 minutes into something and you're like, oh, it just isn't me, move on. I will watch Lords of Chaos, and I will figure out how to reach out to Mickelson and discuss, but whether it ends up on next episode or not. But what it did do was create a conversation between Marshall and I, where we talked about, well, what the hell are we doing, and why do we do it? I mean, yes, we've spent, Marshall and I have spent the last more than a year talking about movies. And as a matter of fact, if you look at and we make it public to everybody, if you look at our soundboard, it's nothing but clips from movies. It's clips from movies that at one time or another hit us in one way or another. And, we use those lines as quotes and conversation pieces. And hell, I think Marshall and I, one time or another, have had conversations with nothing other than movie quotes, and it just showed how dedicated we are to the motion picture cinema. Not to the degree that um, you know we're checking out different angles that directors like to use or anything like that, but just the fun of enjoying 90 minutes to somewhere in the range of, call it 200 minutes on the high end of of quality film. And it's a nice escape, and it's fun, and sometimes they're stupid. you know uh, the Spy Who Shagged Me films, and then sometimes they're 13 Years a Slave, where you're really interested, you're dedicated, there's a really deep, moving story involved, and everything in between. And I think that was one of the things we were going to talk about tonight is some of those movies that we can watch regardless, and some of the and kind of that genre that just speaks to us. I mean, and not to I like a little more of a thinking man's movie. I like to be challenged a little bit more. Marshall likes a dumb movie. Um, so,
Most
anyways,
of the time.
no, I'm just saying I don't
Yeah,
want to
that's
steal
fair.
I don't want to steal the thunder of where you were headed with that, but I did just want to kind of comment and say that we do this because it's fun and we really love the science or the art more likely of cinema.
I'm going to make some points, and while I make some points, I'm going to be thinking about it. I want Joseph to think about it. Mickelson just asked a really great question, which I don't know if we're going to be able to answer, but he asked, "What is your least favorite movie?"
Least favorite movie? Oh,
And
I'm
so
gonna look it up while you're talking because
okay.
I remember the fucking title. I
So
remember
apparently
exactly.
Joseph knows the answer. Mickelson, I want you to answer that one as well. I want to know what your least favorite is. But what I wanted to talk about with Lords of Chaos is, you know, a lot of people talk about originally, a lot of film came to light in the early 1900s, and a lot of people used it to escape, go to theater and kind of escape your daily life. You got AC, or movie theaters one of the first places to have air conditioning. It was this kind of like get away from reality. And I think there was a little too much reality, or maybe more than I was expecting in Lords of Chaos, or maybe more than I was feeling at that moment to uh, be faced with and confronted with. There's a lot of, um, you know, really, really difficult subjects
Was there a
that
strong
I'm
answer? Was there a strong answer there?
yeah, Mickelson threw out his answer.
Okay,
Uh,
hold it until we get to that point.
yeah, and if anybody else is in the chat, feel free to chime in with your least favorite movie too. Um, but in general, it's reality, especially right now with the pandemic going on. It's just kind of something I want to get away from, is kind of pain and suffering. Maybe if there was a different time in my life, I would probably be more into that, watching that movie all the way through. Unfortunately, it seems like it ends sad. I know it's based on a true story, but I don't know how accurate it is. I know I read some reviews where they were talking to the band about it, and I feel like pretty much anybody who has a movie made out of them usually says that they're portrayed terribly, but everyone thinks of themselves as pretty awesome. So hard to say how accurate or inaccurate it was, but for me that was kind of it. Joseph said he's going to kind of dabble in it, and I also think Memorial Weekend it kind of got away from both of us too.
For sure.
Um, but I'm sure Joseph will love to talk to you about it a little bit more next week if he's able to dabble in it. Speaking
Yeah,
of,
I will definitely dive into it. If nothing else, just like I said, to give a 5-10 minute blurb on it because I'm
right,
curious, but at the same time,
and one of the
uh,
things I wanted to talk about is I think I remember reading, and like I said, I wanted to look this up before we started today, but I don't know, man. I'm not a professional. Life's got in the way.
This is an 81 Honda. How dare you?
But I think like metal music is like much more a part of the mainstream culture in the Nordic countries.
probably
Um, like I don't think I'm exaggerating when like elementary school kids listen to metal music, like Norwegian metal music and stuff like that. Like it's very mainstream, I guess, in a way.
Evil shenanigans.
which would be a great name for a metal band. Evil Shenanigans.
um, but it dealt with a lot of interesting things. I think that like in the United States, you had the Yeah, Mikkelsen said that metal is the number two music genre in Norway.
Interesting. Is
And
Mickelson from Norway or
I was going to ask where you're from, Mikkelsen. I don't know, but where did you go? Tell us where you're from, and also tell me where you saw the Mayhem show. Uh, I'd like to know where that was too, because I think that'd be interesting to see where they were, if you went over there to see it, or if they were touring somewhere. But there's a lot of in the United States, when I was growing up, there was, the goth scene where a lot of people were just kind of be anti-preppy, anti-jock, anti-cheerleader, anti-mainstream. And so it's interesting to see how this is mainstream, and it kind of seems like the movie is about this band Mayhem, the first black metal. Uh, they were like anti-mainstream metal, but in the main character is a kind of a anti-mainstream metal, but almost in a poser way. You come to find out throughout the movie, where he talks the talk and walks the walk, but does he believe it? And then kind of what the influence he has on the other band members or people that he surrounds himself with, kind of talking the baddest talk and then causing them to walk some of the walk, um, is a very interesting theme to play out, but man, it just got too dark for me. So Mikkelsen said that he was born and raised in Norway, but he lives in Canada now, and that he's seen them in Norway and San Francisco.
nice?
That's really cool.
I think we have the coolest fan of all time.
He's definitely interesting, way more interesting than we are.
Way more interesting than either of the presenters.
Okay, so Joseph, your least favorite movie. Go.
3 Men and a Baby.
Really?
Oh yeah. Oh god, that was just fucking pits. I mean, like you had real stars.
That's true.
Probably right behind that is like Look Who's Talking. Any is oh god. Anytime my son, he's 7. He really thinks Boss Baby's funny, and Boss Baby's not bad. At least it's Alec Baldwin, and it's cartoons. But when they give babies speech in some really off pace rom com piece of shit comedy. I just don't have the time for it. I've got a limited amount of hours on this planet, and so anytime I have to dedicate 90 minutes to something, I have to think about whether or not it's worthwhile, and those just won't do it for me. Plus, I think my first job, and it may have something to do with this, is I was an usher at an AMC 8 in Oklahoma City. That was my first job. I wore very flammable polyester pants, a tuxedo shirt, and a polyester vest, and I walked around with the broom and the dustpan, the walking dustpan, and I basically my job was to pick up popcorn and candy wrappers. And the cool part about that was because I didn't work like the concession stand or have to be in a spot at a time. I was supposed to move. I could sneak into the back of the movie theater and watch whatever was going on. And we had, 8 different screens at any given time. Unfortunately, I graduated high school in 1991. And if you go back and look at the most popular movies between 1988 and 1992, there are some fantastic films like the first Batman with Michael Keaton, and that I probably saw 30 times from front to back on a big screen, full sound and everything. It was amazing. At the same time, there were a lot of Look Who's Talking 2s and other movies like that you just couldn't suffer through. And it was not a great period of cinema. But I did catch some pretty cool films for free. I actually got paid to go and kind of screen movies. What? What is this? What is the sperm thing? Oh, that's your cat's tail. Sorry, thought you had like a cartoon sperm over there on the side
Uh,
of the skin. Anyways, I do think that that kind of drives me to the ones that I hate is the ones that I kind of suffered through while doing that job.
I could see that. The ones that you just,
But
uh,
again,
yeah.
there were some fantastic films that I got to catch part of. So
So Mickelson, and you were about to have a moment. He said his first job in Canada was as a movie theater usher.
it kind of explains why the three of us are here together, right?
So Mickelson's least favorite movie is the all-female Ghostbusters,
Oh, okay.
which
Uh,
I didn't even see because of the trailer was so bad.
so I will say for an all-female reboot of what I consider to be maybe not a classic, but pretty close. I mean, I
It's a
think the
cult
original
classic for sure.
cult classic for sure. I would almost say that the original Ghostbusters was probably a classic. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, you got Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd. If you can get Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd on one screen, um, outside of Saturday Night Live in the early '80s, that's 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 pretty strong. It was campy for sure, but um,
But
I
I mean,
think
it
the all
fit in
female.
the context of the time, and it was really well done.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt. Even the CG was done really well for the time, and I think that. Um, I think other than the fact that I hate Melissa McCarthy, I think the female reboot was all right. I forget what the blonde-headed lady's name is. That
I know who you're talking
they
about.
basically always plays a crazy person.
Yeah.
Uh, she probably saved that movie from just being a total fart. I mean, it would have been a turd if she had not been part of the cast. Because I don't think the other two lead characters are strong enough to carry it without her. Uh,
In a similar vein, a movie I did see was the all-female version of Ocean's 11, and I did not enjoy that.
Again, I think it's the same thing where you're trying to. Um, th-
It's just like a bad
that
sequel.
well, it's that thing where okay, so you take a Rat Pack vibe, right, which was absolutely. I mean, the original Ocean's 11 was the Rat Pack, right, and then you take that vibe and you put Brad Pitt and God, what's his name? Um, I mean, whoever I forget his name,
George
but
Clooney.
hello, Kitty. Um,
George
it's
Clooney.
just hard to translate a Rat Pack vibe to
Oh
even seven,
yeah,
8, 9, 10 beautiful females. It's not that females can't be crafty and smart and sharp. It's just that it's a different vibe when it
right.
goes that way. I mean, I think Anne
And
Hathaway played a very interesting character in there.
yeah, but
Being
like the way they incorporated her into the story, that's the problem I had is there's just so like Ocean's 11 didn't ask you to. The sequels did, so I'm not talking about them. But Ocean's 11 with George Clooney and Brad Pitt, Matt Damon, all these A-listers, which were great. I know, young Matt
I mean, what
Damon.
a cast! I
Um,
mean, when the least recognized person is Bernie Mac,
right.
like that's a freaking cast, man.
Um, they it was great. The story was great, but you didn't have to really suspend your disbelief. The way they
Right.
set it up and the way they tumbled through it, you're like, okay, 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 I'm with you.
Mhm.
And then with the female version, there was a whole bunch of like wall of what? Uh what are you
So
what's going
Oceans,
on?
do you remember how Oceans 12 and Oceans 13 both had kind of weird premises that like you said, you had to kind of buy into
hmm
something that was really false, but hang on and it'll all make sense in the end. I feel like that's how the female version of Ocean's 11 was.
Yeah.
Exactly to your point, like 12, it's like, you know, wait, you're supposed to make me believe that the dad of, Catherine Zeta-Jones is the guy that set this all up, and and is the mark, and
Right.
all that. It's too far fetched,
Yeah.
right?
And then in
It's a
13
heist film.
that
It's
Julia
just
Roberts exists as Julia Roberts,
right.
but it's not
Julia
Julia
Roberts,
Roberts.
the actress that's playing the bum's wife,
Uh,
is now pretending to be her, but people don't believe it. It's like, come on, man.
You went
Again,
full
gets a little
retard.
campy. It gets a little awkward,
Never go full
and
retard.
yeah, you can't ever. I mean, it's not. The Academy just won't allow
that
it.
was a stand-in for the I'm the dude playing the dude disguised
I'm
as
just
the
a
other
dude playing a dude,
dude.
and then to be another dude. I know who I am. So yeah, I mean, I think it has its struggles, and I think again, you lose that purity, right?
Mhm.
And the purity of that film was the purity of Ocean's 11, even way beyond 12 and 13. Although they were good and they're entertaining, and I wouldn't turn them off if they came on TNT on a Sunday, you know. But I'm not seeking out Ocean's 12. But if I see Ocean's 11 on, I will stop.
Right.
That's legit.
And
And because it's got a fantastic cast, it's got a real story that you can believe. It's got great villains. It's just, yeah. So
then I think
bravo to our viewer for that, because it takes a little bit of guts to say that's your least favorite
right.
film. That's a
And
pretty modern film with some serious star power.
and to think about that a little bit more, especially with Ghostbusters, even over the Ocean's 11 reboot. I think, we grew up with Ghostbusters, and you had Ghostbusters 2, which I don't even remember, to be honest. But uh, Ghostbusters is a cult classic. It's beloved. Everyone, almost everyone thinks it's a good film, and if you love it, you love it.
Yep.
And then they're like, we're gonna do another Ghostbusters movie, and they kind of like take a big old poo on your nostalgia.
Number two, the worst part about number two was Rick Moranis went from being a really side character to going way up.
Oh. But there's a new Ghostbusters that should be coming out with Paul Rudd.
Ooh,
Have you seen the trailer for that?
I've not.
Wonder if we can. Let's get real fancy, and I wonder if we can watch it on here.
Let's see what you can do with your new screen, big killer. Play up.
Maybe if I put what I'm looking for in the. I don't need y'all to see how bad I am at Googling.
Oh, man, you got rid of my soundboard when you did that.
That's right here.
What are you doing here in Somerville anyway?
Honestly, my
Are
mom
we
won't say
watching the
it, but
fucking
we're
ad?
completely broke.
No, this is the trailer for Ghostbusters.
And the only thing that's left in our name is this creepy old farmhouse our grandfather left us in the middle of nowhere. Why'd you
I
bring
think
me
that's
up here?
Psycho House.
Entertainment value?
What is that?
I don't know.
Get the kid from Stranger Things.
Please be
Somehow,
Slimer.
a town that isn't anywhere near a tectonic plate, that has no fault lines, no fracking,
I also
no
have
loud
another man
music
crush
even,
on Paul Rudd, so.
is shaking on a daily basis.
What?
Under the dining table now!
Hey, remember that one summer we died under a table?
I found this in my living room.
Whoa, killer replica.
A replica of what?
A ghost trap? There hasn't been a ghost sighting in 30 years. New York in the 80s, it's like The Walking Dead. Your dad never mentioned this to you?
It's just my mom. My grandfather died. My mom says we're just here to pick through the rubble of his life.
Wait a minute. Who are you?
Call it fate. Call it luck.
call it karma.
Bill Machine.
I believe that everything happens for a reason.
Come on, darling.
Okay.
It has a gunner seat?
I mean, I'm on board. That trailer gets me way better than the trailer for a movie I never even watched.
You know, the interesting thing about the beginning of that trailer kind of reminded me of what was the movie that came out with where they couldn't speak because the aliens
Oh,
could hear them.
the Quiet movie that John
Yeah,
Krasinski,
a
Quiet
quiet
Place.
place.
Yeah,
It had kind of that same feel at the beginning, and I was like, "Ooh, how dark is this going to get?" Because that
right.
was a really good film.
That was fun. So Mickelson, you bring up a very interesting point. He said, "I don't know about that. I think it's too serious." And compared to like the campy Ghostbusters, I can see.
Right, but I mean,
It does have Paul Rudd.
we're bitching about the fact that if you take Campy and try to keep redoing it, you water it down too much, right?
Right. But I also think that that's kind of the trend. That's like where we're at with movies in this.
I mean, look at The Dark Knight.
hmm all the
Uh,
all the superhero movies have to be like way more kind of gritty and believable, and so I think Ghostbusters is following that. But it's hard to say. Like Paul Rudd is a very good comedic actor, so it's hard to say. He's very good with his facial expressions. Joseph doesn't agree. And this is one of the
No,
reasons why we wanted to talk
I
on
think
this.
I think he's fantastic because he doesn't age.
That's true. He is invincible,
He
or
sold his soul to the devil.
yes, maybe he is a ghost. That's why he's in it. I'm gonna answer the question now, on my least favorite movie, and I don't have a least favorite movie because I've seen way too many bad ones. So there was a summer, I want to say between my junior and senior year in high school, where my parents got the Blockbuster Movie Pass. And, I didn't have a job. It was summer break. So me and my best friend, my next door neighbor, we would go rent. I don't know how many you could rent at a time. Let's say two, maybe even one. But we would just rent a bad movie or a movie and go watch it. Then go back to the video store, turn it in, rent another one, go home and watch it. And we did that almost every day for a whole summer. And I can tell you that I will consider it the worst movie of all time if it's got the Asylum label on it, which is a movie studio that makes terrible movies. And usually, what they do is there's a movie out in theaters, and they make a movie with a similar title and would release it directly to Blockbuster. At the
How
same
very
time.
porno.
So like Transformers is in theaters, and at
Go Bob.
Blockbuster you can find Transmorphers with a robot-y cover. And they were all horrible.
Is Wayne Brady gonna have to choke a bitch?
Now, Mickelson said his favorite bad movie is The Room, which your face doesn't surprise me. Before I get talking about that, I'm gonna turn my light on before it gets too dark in here. Too mood lighty.
Out in the West Texas town of El Paso.
All right, so I haven't actually seen The Room, Mickelson, but I know what it's about. I've seen clips. I've seen like horrible clips, montage from it. So part of the reason it's kind of like Joseph. This movie is famously bad. Like
It comes up as 2003 romance drama. Like what?
The like Alamo Drafthouse will have a screening party for it where you're supposed to like throw popcorn at the screen and boo and um but one of the things that makes it so bad is Tommy Wiseau, the director, writer, and lead actor, who can't deliver a line that makes sense. So, Mickelson, feel free to help me out, but we'll watch a few of these and you can kind of get a feel for
Hi.
what it's
Can I
all
help
about.
you?
Yeah, can I have a dozen red roses, please?
Oh, hi, Johnny. I didn't know it was you. Here you go.
That's me. How much is it?
It'll be $18.
Here you go. Keep the change. Hi, doggy.
You're my favorite customer.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Dialogue was so bad.
Listen, no, boy. No. Somebody had better do something around here.
So, to pick up that note, my favorite bad movie ever. I don't know if it's necessarily a bad movie, but it was so cheaply done, and it was so done early on in the director's career that it actually turned out to be a pretty good movie, but bad movie is El Mariachi. Oh, you might want to look this one up. Not Desperado. Desperado came later. El Mariachi is the predecessor.
Robert Rodriguez.
Yeah, this is his first movie. This one was done for like $800. It's very much along the lines of Desperado, and even the one where they used Johnny Depp. I forget what that one. A Day in the Life of Mexico or something like that. And I think that's kind of a very loose trilogy. El Mariachi is not super well made, but it's very entertaining. And for a very low budget film, it's pretty good.
I'm gonna have to think about that a little bit longer on bad movies that I like.
I think you've already said Tremors would be
where I
your
was
number one
going,
shit movie.
where I was going with that, Joseph, was I probably like a lot of bad movies that I don't consider bad.
We could just take your top 10 and make those everybody else's list of not so bad crap movies.
Like a movie, if it's ever on TV, I just get sucked in, and I even don't think I don't rate it as highly as Tremors. But Waterworld,
Oh,
it just does it for me, man. Is that stinky, huh?
Waterworld. Good God, we're gonna lose all our viewers.
I get no respect. Mickelson's probably happy I couldn't finish Lords of Chaos.
Yeah,
It means it's way up here.
He's like, no shit.
But this is like my favorite scene from Waterworld.
Let's have it.
Oh, thank God.
It's just that old man. He's spent his whole life down in the dungeon of this oil tanker, happy to die.
I will give you this. Okay, so you are considerably younger than me, and I'm going to draw this could be a big stretch, but I'm going to pretend that you are young enough that Waterworld was your Mad Max. I mean, it kind of was. It was
It
your
probably
apocalypse.
was to me because I saw it when I was really young. So
when you were 12, 13 years old, that was your apocalyptic movie, right? And unfortunately for you, you didn't grow up in the genre of the really good apocalyptic movies, which was we started with Mad Max, Road Warrior, Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, and then there was a litany of others, right? They even made it into kind of weird mainstream, even like The Wraith was that would also go really high on my list of crap movies. But that kind of apocalyptic, almost horror theme. But I guess I'm gonna pretend like Waterworld was your Mad Max.
I appreciate you bailing me out of that.
I'm trying. I'm really, really trying.
Now,
That's
like I
just
said, I won't defend it to anyone. It just I think you might have hit the nail on the head, and I just didn't even realize it. Where something about it appeals to me, and
right.
even as it appeals to me, like I might say like it's my favorite bad movie, because
Right.
I can recognize that it's super slow. There's like a lot of stuff that's just terrible about it, but for some reason it comes on and I'm like in a trance, and I'll just watch it till the end, and I'm like, good movie.
The fact is, I've got to, again, we're no Siskel and Ebert. We're not professionally trained in much of anything, and definitely not cinematography. And the coolest thing about film is you like what you like. And one of my terribly guilty pleasures, and if I see it on, I don't care what channel it's on or what day it is. If I come across A Knight's Tale and it's less than, if there's more than 10 minutes left on screen, I'm watching it, and I love it. I love every character in that movie. Um, if
Yeah,
nothing else, I can
I
watch it because the female lead is gorgeous and funny, and Heath Ledger is hilarious. He's, you know what? Heath Ledger is not even the best part of that movie,
oh no,
and that's awesome
Heath
because
Ledger gets
Ledger
outshined
to
by
me,
almost everybody in that movie, to be
yeah, he is,
frank.
yeah. Um, so you know, I think we all have movies that mean something to us and kind of click with us somewhere in our heart that aren't necessarily that good. And, I mean, you can't sit around and watch Glory every weekend, you know? Fantastic film, Denzel's first big break, Matthew Broderick, gorgeous film, amazing film, impactful film about, the Buffalo Soldiers in the Civil War, but, I saw it twice, I'm good, you know?
Right, right.
Uh, the Green Mile, on the other hand, yeah, let it come on.
There's on
But,
the 200-minute movie.
again, let's just be honest. If he comes on screen, I'm watching.
Right, Tom Hanks.
Oh yeah, if you got a Tom Hanks film on screen, I'm watching. I'm sold.
All right. In a interesting vein, Mickelson has a question that I find hard to answer for me, but because I mean, if I'm so, what's the first movie that made you cry?
Ooh,
I find that, I mean, like as a kid, who knows?
The Outsider.
Right? Like I grew up with like the OG Disney stuff that was always tearing at your hearts, and
I remember as a kid reading S.E. Hinton books. She wrote The Outsiders and that series. And the first time I saw The Outsiders, because I was so connected to it via reading her books. Um, when I believe the character Dallas dies, it was shocking to me. It was mind, because all of a sudden something that I had only read in the past and felt crushing, I saw it on screen and it broke my heart. It was much like reading. Do you remember? I don't know if you will. There was a book called Where the Red Fern Grows. It's about a boy and his dog, real poor kid, and his blue tick hound, and it's got to be put down at the end. It's fucked up, but Um, it was similar to that because it's kids from the other side of the track, and I related to it way too much, and seeing it on big screen was almost too impactful.
Hmm. Yeah,
You can stick with the Lion King.
actually, if I had to pick a Disney movie, it was probably going to be The Land Before Time. I don't know if that's I think it's Disney.
Is that the one with the
It's with the
dinosaurs?
dinosaurs, yeah.
Okay.
Where at the beginning the mom dies trying to take care of.
So it's Bambi.
It's like Bambi, but with dinosaurs.
Dinosaurs.
And these days, man, I feel like after having Luke, my son is a year and a half, and my mom passing away a year and a half ago. Man, it doesn't take much for a movie to make me cry because it pulls from your own. You can identify, feel the pain or the longing when it comes to But there's all these movies with like father-son relationships, and these days I'm just like, oh.
It's funny you said that because as you're saying that, I'm thinking about like, kind of deep, pull at your heartstrings kind of movies. And I'm the same way. I think ever since Why I Was Born, I'm a little more like, oh, damn it, that's too much. Got the allergy, in the eye. But I was looking over while you were talking at our soundboard, and I was like, there are no heartstrings being pulled on the soundboard whatsoever.
I mean,
You chose poorly.
no, there are not.
Yeah.
Hey, yeah! Ha!
Yeah, I got nothing. Mickelson said that the first movie that made him cry was What's Eating Gilbert Grape. Leo.
Another one of those. So wasn't Mary Stuart Masterson in that film? Yes. So again,
I guess that was a rhetorical question.
again, phenomenal cast, right?
Right.
I mean, if you get Leo, right, and Johnny Depp both on the main screen, like that's pretty legit, Yeah. Regardless, Juliette Lewis is in that. Mary Steenburgen's in that. Johnny Depp's in that. Leonardo DiCaprio,
Right.
whenever he was a baby. John C. Riley. John C. Riley was in that.
Oh my gosh.
Fucking A. Who knew he'd been kicking around that long? But point being, yeah, no doubt. And heartfelt movie. I don't know that I would ever go back and watch it, but
Right.
my wife brought me like a 3-gallon michelada. Look at that thing. It's like the size of your head.
Man, I'm jelly.
With my Perkins and Will straw.
Is that like one of those metal straws? Did they say that to you?
No, it's rubber.
Huh.
It's a big rubber straw. Oh, and if you happen to be a cocaine addict, this would be a party favorite. Holy moly. The diameter on that sucker. Woo.
Mickelson, he wanted to say that the acting in the movie was just so great and believable that you really start to feel for the characters.
I agree. I think that who probably stole that movie was the mom. She was just uncomfortable enough, just awkward enough that you felt for that lady, and then you felt for the people who loved her. And that's hard. That's hard. These were very poor folks in a small town, and kids are fucking mean, and you can only imagine, what the family members of that lady had to deal with on a regular basis. Not to mention, Leo's character's got his own challenges, and Johnny Depp's like, the big brother just trying to hold everything together, even though he was dealt really bad hand. And yeah, I mean, if you don't get choked up by that, you're probably a pretty heartless bastard.
Yeah, man. Oh, serious movies.
So,
Those
how do you,
Squires, man.
Marshall? How do you feel about serious movies?
I actually usually like, I guess, the serious movies. I usually enjoy the dramas. Um, I asked Mickelson if he'd seen October Sky just now. He said he hadn't, because I wanted to see, what he thought about us doing that one as well. That one's more of a drama. It doesn't get serious like Gilbert Grape. It definitely has some feels in it, but um, most dramas do these days. But
Paging Dr. Faggot.
we're gonna get banned on Twitch. Mickelson, I'll shoot you a message if we need to move to like Mixer or whatever the Microsoft one is.
And they said,
Bye.
I always jump the gun on that. I can never hold it as long as he does.
you just can't. Bye.
Bye.
That should be our exit every week.
That should be.
So, what would you, Marshall? Well, let's start with Mickelson because his responses come a little slower because he has to type it. Mickelson, what would you say is your favorite movie genre if you had to, dial in to one? And then follow that up with Marshall, what's your favorite? And then I'll kind of speak to mine.
My favorite, I'll start, and my favorite is definitely action and modern. I would say modern action even, because it's like action comedy. Like
Okay.
any action movie made these days has a lot of comedy
Give me a
built
for
into
instance.
it.
Give me one that really toes the line.
Mission Impossible. Any of the recent Mission Impossibles, like
Really?
with Simon Pegg. You mean toe the line of action and comedy? Like, they add in Simon Pegg as like the comic relief, even Ving Rhames in a lot of the Mission Impossible movies. You're constantly laughing. Um, and they're doing in a modern way what the old campy movies did. You had Arnold and Stallone, and they're like, constantly making their one-liners and stuff
The
like
god
that.
awful one-liners.
The god awful one-liners. We've kind of graduated from that, I guess you could say, to non-campy, roll your eyes type of comedy.
Right.
On a good movie. But that's some of, there's a lot of spy movies. What is the one? There's the one with Superman and the new Captain Kirk, where there were two spies. One was a Russian spy, one was American spy.
Oh, you're talking about yes. God dang, and that dude that plays Superman is wicked handsome in that movie.
Right.
I mean, just way, way too good looking.
Oh my gosh, I am like totally blanking.
You're talking about Uncle.
Yeah, the man from Uncle.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Now, see, the man from Uncle, yeah, I freaking love that movie. And
yeah, that one was so
they
much fun. It
set
had
it up at
Alicia
the end.
Vikander, that's what I thought it was her too in it.
Yeah. They set that movie up to have a second in the series. I mean,
Right.
It was very well set up to like, hey, come back for the adventures of the man from Uncle. And they, at the very end of the movie, they all of a sudden these people are picked to be a team, right? It's like, hey, you guys, kind of work together. So now you're going to work together and kind of thing. And unfortunately, it just never happened.
Yeah.
Now again, it was only 5 years ago, but the way the three of those people's careers are going, well, at least two of them, it's hard to imagine that they'll circle back around and be able to re-land that.
So
Uh,
it wasn't Captain Hook, it was or Captain Kirk. It was Army Hammer. Uh,
what has he played in that I know him from other than that? Go back up to
that picture was a terrible picture of.
Snap.
He was in the Lone Ranger. I remember watching that. He was the Winklevoss twins in The Social Network.
How funny. I think for me, I am probably somewhere. I love a good mob movie. God damn, I love a good mob movie. I like a.
Mom. I thought you said mom movie.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, Mrs. Doubtfire maybe, but
Yeah, that's a damn good movie.
I like a good mob movie. I really like I like a good suspense movie. I was talking earlier about that Fassbender film from Sweden that I can't remember the name of. It was really good. Um, that's one of the things I really like about like the Alien series, especially as they got newer. They
Yeah,
got a little
man.
they got a little darker, and it was more
That
suspense rather
that
than it was more suspense than horror. It wasn't as much science.
so you look at the aliens as if they were forming a mafia because it's all within the family, and the queen is the Dawn, right? Because you said you're relating this to mob movies.
Wasn't relating the two at all. I was just saying I like it. I like it. I like a good suspenseful film.
Right.
If I like a good mob movie, just for the pure genre of it. But I think my favorite genre is suspense, like the one we talked about last week, Ex Machina. I think that to me that was a suspense film, and I think if they would have wanted to, they could have made it a lot darker and a lot scarier.
Oh yeah.
Instead, they were really trying to play with you on the technology side and what do you do with this monster? I mean, it's a Frankenstein movie. Is really what it was.
Right. It was
Frankenstein's monster gets away and
that one does a
creates.
great job with this the suspense, like you said, because even when he's it's a great a point we didn't bring up last week, but kind of the dichotomy is you're on edge whenever Caleb's with Nathan, and
Mhm.
ironically you're relaxed when he's with
The
Ava.
monster. And let's be honest. Let's call Ava Frankenstein
Right.
because it's what she is.
Frankenstein's monster.
Or
Nathan's
yeah, I
Frankenstein.
mean, Nathan technically was Frankenstein. It's Frankenstein.
Oh my god.
Also, probably in my top 10 right there. The Young Frankenstein was probably one of the top 10 best movies I've ever seen.
All right, so Mickelson's put in his answers, and this is where Mickelson and I, in a weird way of not enjoying foreign movies, I can kind of get on board with this. So he said his favorite genre is comedy, and that his favorite comedy is Shaun of the Dead.
Oh, I won't by any means say that I love Shaun of the Dead, but I will say that I have fallen in love with Simon Pegg over the years, and I think that may have been the first time I was really introduced to him with Shaun of the Dead. Um, and then even like we were talking a couple of weeks ago about Hector and the Search for Happiness or whatever it was. That was one of the more recent films I saw him in. He gets smarter every film he's in. Run, Fat Boy, Run
That was a good one.
made me fucking cry.
That movie
That
was
was
great.
a beautiful, well written.
That movie had no right being as good as it was.
No, it was Notting Hill, without any beautiful people. It was gorgeous. And so,
And
if you get lost in a Simon Pegg film, I can't judge you for that at all.
so and this is the same director, but so I do like Shaun of the Dead a lot.
Sure.
But if I had to to pick which one I liked more, I'd pick Hot Fuzz. I think I enjoy Hot Fuzz more than Shaun of the Dead.
Hot Fuzz was perfectly stupid, right? It had just the right level of this is fucking stupid. And then you're like, oh wait, he's the only one that knows.
Right.
Okay.
So for
How
me,
does that idiot get it?
and I hope I'm getting them in the right order before I say this, so I'm gonna look it up. But I want to say that they made Shaun of the Dead before they made Hot Fuzz.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
If
that,
not, I'd be terribly surprised.
yep. So Shaun of the Dead was 04, Hot Fuzz was 07. So I totally believe it. Um, and what I have to say about that is I feel like in Shaun of the Dead, the comedy was obviously similar, the same, um, in
Yeah.
a similar vein, obviously, but there were some lulls, some small parts that kind of fell flat or lose my interest just a little bit in Shaun of the Dead, and I feel like that was kind of like perfected in Hot Fuzz to where those moments didn't
I
happen.
disagree.
You disagree?
I disagree. I think both of those movies, if they have a failure, it's the same one. It's that keeping that level of funny going and keeping me engaged is challenging. And both of those have flat spots. And I actually think that Hot Fuzz has more flat spots than Shaun of the Dead.
You might be
But
right. I might be giving Hot Fuzz too much credit because I will say that I think Hot Fuzz also has the better, not to just, crap on Mickelson's favorite comedy movie of all time. I feel like Hot Fuzz has a better payoff at the end where Shaun of the Dead, they end at the pub, which was, great payoff for the movie because that's like the goal of the movie. Oh, well, let's have a pint until this all blows over, which is hilarious. But I
well,
feel
I think
like,
it's a feature that runs through the whole movie because like he fights with his girlfriend all the time because all he ever wants to do is go to that same fucking pub. And every solution to every problem with him and his roommate is, well, let's go over to the pub and have a pint. It's like, and so where else would they end up?
well, it's not that they end up at the pub. I think it's that they end up at the pub and it turns into more of a,
Wah, wah.
yeah. Whereas Hot Fuzz, would they also set it up, the ending of Hot Fuzz up throughout the whole movie? But I don't know. Like I just said, my favorite genre is comedy action, so maybe that's why I like Hot Fuzz a lot more.
And I think they're both, again, I can't give either one of them a thumbs down. I think they're
Right.
both fun films. And, if we get off the screen tonight and I'm flipping through Hulu and Hot Fuzz pops up, man, I'm watching it. I'm staying up till I'll be late to work tomorrow because that's funny shit.
Right.
And same thing with Shaun of the Dead. I think Shaun of the Dead's probably it's definitely more of a cult classic. It's definitely more of uh, that is a Simon Pegg movie, right?
Right.
Then even more than Hot Fuzz. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And then where I was going with agreeing with him, he says that, or he also likes old foreign kung fu movies, which I can get on board. I used to watch a lot of the old Jackie Chan movies.
Well, speaking of, I watched, was it Bob and Doug? I watched Bob and Doug Enter the Dragon today. But
What a
unfortunately,
segue.
but unfortunately, they came out.
What? 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 What?
What? That was something.
Did you like that segue? That's pretty strong, yeah?
That was super strong. Left me speechless, my friend.
Are you blocking me?
No, dude, your mouse is showing as holding down right now. You're like dragging that around the screen.
Oh, son of
Uh-oh.
wah, wah.
Wonder if I can fix it. No, I took away the hand over control.
All right, shite.
Here, let me redo your.
I'm gonna quit this job. It's a good thing I don't get paid for this shit. You know, so Marshall and I today were talking on Skype, and that should be our first sponsor. And we were going back and forth while we were watching the potential launch of SpaceX. I believe they called the ship the Dragon. Bob and Doug. There's some funny shit about that, man. There, but had they taken off today, that probably would have been our main topic of conversation today. Because how do you not recognize the fact that, for the first time in roughly a decade, the U.S. launched human beings into outer space, and just the fact that it's a Elon Musk, Tesla tied in deal. I mean, just there's a lot of interesting storylines. Not to mention the fact that the guys that helped load the pilots into the capsule today look like they were extras in a bad '70s Bond movie, or the fact that the whole ship looked like a penis. There were a lot of stories there, and we probably would spend a lot of time on that. But the fact that the weather shut it down and they basically just had to shut it off, a little bit of a buzzkill. I'm more than interested in discussing it if you want to, but
Well,
again,
Sarah said that they tentatively rescheduled it to Saturday, so I think we could leave that.
yeah, let's let that. Again, it would have been perfect considering we come on Wednesday nights at 8 o'clock, and it was supposed to launch on a Wednesday. It definitely would have lent itself to some interesting discussions, but
Yeah,
we'll see
and
how it goes next week.
that's why I was trying to push for. This is for you and for Mickelson. That's why I was trying to push for maybe watching October Sky as a point of discussion, because it's about um, these teens in some coal mining town, I think in Pennsylvania, who, you know, they're in high school, they're going nowhere except, they graduate high school and they know they're going to go work in the mine, but then they see Sputnik on the news and then they can go outside and see it flying over at night.
That's cool.
And it kind of inspires one, Homer Hickam, who now works for NASA.
Really?
Really, um,
That's cool.
to get into rocketry. Before, this is the 60s. And so it's
Right.
before you could go to Walmart and buy a model rocket and, shoot it off as a kid. Oh, Mickelson said he has seen it.
Well, that's one of us. I can't click.
I know. I couldn't give you control. The control thing wasn't working again, so I don't know.
Marsha.
Just tell me what you want to click and I'll click it.
No, 999.
Nine. Oh, okay.
Oh, well, yeah.
There it is.
9999999.
So much pleasure.
My man.
Another Michael Fassbender film, right?
Say what?
That is another Michael Fassbender film.
October Sky?
No, the 999
Oh,
Inglourious Bastards.
yes. Yes. He's the one. He's the failure. He's the weak link.
I don't buy that for a minute. But one of my favorite lines in that whole movie is whenever he realizes he's been busted and he's like, well, if that's the case, I'd like to go out speaking the King's English if
Right.
you don't mind.
My favorite, I think my favorite
That's a classy motherfucker right there.
My favorite character, well, I mean, he's Fassbender. What can he say? My favorite character in that movie, though, has got to be the Hugo Stieglitz. Stieglitz. And like the second they're made, he just takes his gun, puts it right in his crotch.
Taking 6 of them with him no matter what, because he knows he's not going to. I don't know who my. Oh, you know what? Well, I guess unfortunately for me, because it's a little passe, but
Gorlami.
Yeah. Gorlami is definitely my favorite character, just because
Lieutenant
he's
Aldo Rain.
Lieutenant Aldo Rain, and he's gonna get his scalps and kill it. What he say? And business is a boom.
Booming.
That's my kind of guy right there.
Man, I loved how they changed how at the end of the movie they kill Hitler.
So let me ask you this. So when I was a kid, I think the movie that I watched the most that probably drove my mom crazy. I had a single mom who was a teacher, um, and she would come home at all hours because she had a second job, and so basically I was weird latchkey kid, and I watched a lot of VHS tapes and a lot of cable. Um, I went to the Buy for Less grocery store that had a video store inside of it, right?
Right.
So many times that the girl that was 3 years older, that was kind of like the manager, she was like 16, uh, ended up being one of my first girlfriends. Because I'd ride up there on my BMX bike to pick out a shitty $2 movie, and I would talk to her. Name was Sarah. Uh, I'll tell you some stories offline. It's pretty. Uh,
Your whole life is
it,
about movies, Joseph.
it kind of is. It kind of is. And but
Man,
so,
I miss video stores. God,
oh,
I
dude,
used to flirt with the clerks when I was in high
what I'm
school.
saying. That's how, dude. Sarah was my first love, and it's probably because she hooked me up with extra videos. And when I got my big job, I got my big break, and I worked at the movie theater as an usher, I would take her to movies because I could get her in free. It was, I mean, it's just always been part of my life. But the Mad Max Road Warrior and Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome was probably the things that was like a constant through all of my teen years. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I can't imagine what it'd be like for my mother to walk in and see Mel Gibson racing, these thugs down a highway, and they're trying to chase him off the road, and she's like, Jesus,
Right.
this again.
They're wearing their metal-studded speedos.
Right, the guy that's wearing the Jason hockey mask, humongous, Lord of the Wasteland. So what would be that film for you and for our friend, or not even film, but just that thing that was just kind of a constant throughout your teen years.
Well, your story reminded me of this, but it doesn't answer your question.
Fair enough.
Oh man, I don't even know how old I was, but I was in high school. One year when I was in high school for Christmas or my birthday, my mom, my mom bought me Austin Powers Gold Member. And I was like, what are you doing buying me this movie to watch? And I had seen it,
Such a fun movie.
Of course I'd seen it because I had the Blockbuster Movie Pass, so I'd seen like every movie that was there at the time. But I was like, what are you doing? So one night, it was one of the things that I got to do on a rare occasion with my mom as we'd stay up late and watch a movie.
Oh, cool.
Oh, one of my favorite bad movies. I'll have to tell you, it just reminded me of that I'd watch with my mom. Uh, oh man, now I totally forgot what movie I was even talking about just now.
Oh, you're talking
Goldmember.
about Goldmember.
So I made her watch it with me for buying it, and she was, she's like a very sweet, innocent.
She's like, oh, I messed up.
Yeah, I was like, Mom, what are you doing by me? I was like, you know what, you gotta watch it with me now. You bought it for me. And she was just, I mean, I think by the end of the movie she was laughing because I think it brought us a lot closer. She kind of, I think, realized I got comedy that she didn't think I got. But another movie that we liked to watch, and actually, I think 2 years ago for Christmas, she got it for me, I got it for me, I got it for her, one of like the other, was A Low Down Dirty Shame,
Okay.
which I will admit is a bad movie.
Not a good movie, but I get it. Yeah, I get it.
I'm glad you get it. Anyway, I think that was my mom's Tremors though.
Who directed that? Do you remember?
Oh God, no, I don't.
So I would propose the same question to our friend Mickelson. Thank God you have like a golfer's name or something, because I forget. I'm
Oh,
bad with it.
Keenan Wayne's directed it, wrote
Okay,
it,
I
and
wondered if it
starred
was
in
one of
it.
the Wayne brothers, but I wasn't gonna,
I wasn't sure if he had his hand in it
Oh,
or not
down,
either.
dirty shame. It's like a Wayans brother trying to do uh oh God, what's the guy's name from New York? The little black director. Come
Anyway, while you're being
on. Yeah.
weird, Mickelson said that I think he's referring to your question, which is like, what was the movie that was kind of like a staple for you growing
Yeah.
up? He said it was Borat. He said he was way too young to watch it, but it has shaped his style of humor.
I get it. I mean, God dang, the first time I ever saw him, I was like,
Sacha Baron Cohen.
yeah, I was like, this guy's a fucking idiot. And then Borat was really actually genius. There was something about it that just really, really works. That dude's funny. I don't care who you are. That dude is funny.
He
Uh,
is, and I remember when
his
I first saw Borat, it took me a long time because I think that was my first real or felt like my first introduction to Sacha Baron Cohen, and
Mhm.
is this guy for real, or is
Right.
he playing a part? And when you find out he's playing a part, holy shit, you're like, that guy.
I think that's the genius of it, right?
Right,
Is he played basically Borat on in TV shows. Um, but yeah, when you saw Borat, you're like, this fucking guy is an idiot, and then you're like, oh wait, he's pretending to be this idiot.
right,
It was too real to, it seemed like a reality spoof show,
right. Like
like like this. It was Jackass. Like, this guy's going out in public and he's doing this thing, but that's really who he is. And you're like, oh wait, no, he's an intelligent, like, really, really well trained actor, and just he found his niche. God bless him.
right. That's a great analogy. Was like it's like the guys from Jackass making a movie, which is what it
Mhm.
felt like. And
It's
then
what it felt like. It felt like
and
Johnny
then this guy
Knoxville going in and trying to pretend to be, you know,
and then this
or
guy talks about the movie like RDJ, was talking with Joe Rogan about Tropic Thunder, and all of
yeah,
a sudden you're like, oh, he what?
you were pretending like you're not really from Kazakhstan.
You're not an idiot from Kazakhstan.
You really didn't refer to your wife's vagina as a wizard's sleeve.
Haha, very nice high five. Oh, we need to put that on the soundboard.
It hangs like wizard sleeve. Another guilty pleasure of mine, and it has always been on our soundboard. It was one of the first things that ever made it on our soundboard was, excuse me, Major Payne.
Yes.
The funny thing about Major Payne was I actually served in the military, and I had a drill sergeant, and there's nothing about that movie that's realistic at all. Um, but I also grew up on Damon Wayans in Living Color, and some of the Wayans brothers stuff, and he's always even stand up. He's kind of he's not Richard Pryor comedic genius, but he's a funny dude.
Right.
And when he built that character, on Major Payne, it was almost as strong a character as Borat. You know, like that dude was Major Payne.
Right.
As ridiculous as Major Payne was, he was that character.
Right. Like they create this character that you've never seen before,
Right.
and then commit to it 100% as an
Right.
actor, to where you're like, this is who this person is, right?
Yeah. It's no different than Al Pacino becoming Scarface, right?
Exactly. Except like I feel like, you know, maybe we're more saturated with it now, but I feel like you've seen it before though. You've seen the
Right.
Scarface type before.
Mhm.
Whereas with like Major Payne and Borat, this is something completely new territory, and you're like,
You're
this
like,
guy,
what?
holy
Yeah.
crap.
Because I mean, that's the best thing about Major Payne, right? Is, you know, you expect the drill sergeant, you know, to be Full Metal Jacket, you know, what's that guy, Emery, whatever his name was,
Right. I
you
know what you're
know,
talking about.
like just real drill sergeant crawling up your butt, and then this guy comes along and is like, and like you said, he's so committed to it that even in the dramatic scenes, you know, like he can't come out of that character. He doesn't
Right.
come out of character until the DVD commentary is put together. So pretty good stuff, man.
That movie's so
Stupid. So awesome and so stupid at the same time.
like, this is a perfect example. Opening a Coke can.
Exactly. And the fart scene that follows that is the only thing that's better than the Coke can itself. The kid's like, that's awesome. Well, we've been at it for almost an hour and a half. I can't remember having more fun doing this, but while we're on, is there anything that Mickelson would like us to entertain before we sign off?
Before we sign off, we can
Oh yeah, thanks.
do taking the drugs. I wonder if I can share link. I'm gonna pull it up in a different browser so that you can see it. Nope. Copy.
This is what they call dead air.
Yes. Good thing it's happening at the end. Relatively the end.
And it's
We
good
do
that
have three
we
viewers
really only
though,
have
so
one fan, and
sorry
that guy's
everyone.
willing to hang on no matter what.
All right, well I added October Sky to the list and it's being a butt and not showing up. All right, Mickelson asked what movie we're doing for the upcoming week, and that was going to be my next topic, which is why I was trying to pull up this Excel spreadsheet. So perfect segue, not as perfect as Joseph's segue to the SpaceX launch, but
True.
that's impossible to beat.
Well, I only do one show at night. I won't do 2 shows in one night. Just won't do it. Beetlejuice, by the way.
You want to add that to the list?
No, that was a line from Beetlejuice.
Oh, did he say I only do? That's why I only do one show.
That means like, that's why I won't do 2 shows in one night. I just won't do it.
That movie, I haven't seen that movie in a long time. Anyway,
Put
we don't
it
have
on
to
the
talk
list.
about that right now.
Put it on the list. I love that fucking movie.
All right, man.
It's always good. It even stands up.
Right? Okay.
I'm
It's
cool
been a
with
while.
October Sky. We talked about Inception.
See if it's
Several.
Yeah, I kind of want to do October Sky just as a homage.
Let's do it, because
Okay.
hopefully hopefully SpaceX will launch on Saturday.
Right.
We'll watch October Sky. We can tie the two together. We'll have a little space thing going on, and it'll all mesh.
That sounds great. All right, and then I don't think it's fair to do a rating of Lords of Chaos, considering how much we
No,
watched of it.
again, give me 5 minutes at the first segment of the next episode, and I'll give it the best review I can.
Alrighty. So October Sky it is. I'm not sure what streaming services it's on, if any. I was trying to log into Netflix just now.
Figure it out. Worst case scenario, it's $6 on Amazon. We'll be good.
That's true. We'll
Especially
figure
now that Amazon's going to be our next sponsor.
Man, talk about
Like
making
Bezos can't afford to throw a couple of bones.
What
Especially after nobody made out like Bezos did on the COVID deal. He's like, oh snap!
maybe we can
Everybody's got
pressure
to
him.
stay home and they have to have everything shipped to them.
I wonder if his
I just
ego.
bought Whole Foods.
I wonder if his ego gets the best of him and be like, "What are you too poor?"
Yeah, if we asked him for some sponsorship dollars, you poor bastards. Like, okay. Appreciate it, Jeff.
We'll shill it. We'll shill it. Be like, I got this from Amazon today.
Oh, man, I will. I'm wearing an Amazon t-shirt every day.
2-day delivery.
Or Whole Foods, because he now owns them too. All right, guys. Man, this has been fun. I actually kind of like the idea of not necessarily focusing on one particular movie every now and then. It's kind of fun to just kind of bounce around and hit some of our greatest hits. Where it's funny because I thought today when Marshall and I talked about kind of going off
Script.
off the script and doing this kind of bounce around thing, I was like, oh man, I'll end up talking about my favorite parts of all my favorite movies that I won't have anything to relate to in the future, and I haven't mentioned 10 movies today, so that's really fun. And going down, this is very much what happened that caused this thing in the first place, was the rabbit holes that end up where we're talking about the Man from U.N.C.L.E., right?
Mm-hmm.
That would have never come up in conversation. It definitely never would have made the list. But once we're able to kind of stumble across and find that, it ends up being a pretty cool topic. So anywho.
Yeah, I think that closes it out nicely. Mickelson, it was a pleasure having you back this week. It was a ton of fun.
Michelangelo.
You ask a lot of really good questions that I feel like allow us to respond and give us questions we don't normally think about, I guess, or maybe we've already asked each other in the time that we spent working together. So I feel like you're helping us keep this more entertaining than it might
Not
be
to mention,
otherwise. So
absolutely our best fan born in Norway, hands down.
Right. And yeah, I mean, I can't dispute that at all. So with that, I'm going to give it the old.
Well, bye.
And we'll see you next week.